Welcome back to another North Carolina Tar Heels football podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you are watching us on our rapidly growing YouTube channel that is called Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones. And joining me is the THI Jack, our Noah Taylor and Chris Collins, Mr. Brandon Peay, THI staff writer. Of course, you guys know who Brandon is. We are here for part 5 of our 9-part series looking ahead to the Tar Heels 2022 football season that commences August 27 when FCS member Florida A&M visits Kenan Stadium in week 0. Heels getting off the ground a week before most of the teams around college football. That'll be an 8 p.m. game on the ACC network. Night game, big-time band competition that night, or at least band display. I'm not sure the Tar Heel band can compete with the Florida A&M band, Brandon. That'll be a lot of fun. A lot of excitement about this team because potential is oozing everywhere in every position group, including at tight end, which is what we're going to address here in part 5. There are 4 tight ends on the roster, 3 of whom we're going to speak about because we think these 3 guys will all play quite a bit. In fact, I'm anticipating packages with all 3 on the field. We saw glimpses of it last year here and there. I think Kamari Morales, Bryson, Nesbitt, John Copenhaver, we're going to see them all on the field. And we're going to see them on the field at one time for a variety of reasons. So, Brandon, when you think about Carolina's tight end room, what jumps out at you, either positive or negative?
Before last season, we would I don't think the tight ends were as used as they were last season. I think they would talk about how they need to get the tight ends more involved, but they never really did it. And then last season we saw the wide receivers kind of had troubles creating separation on their routes. So we saw UNC use the tight ends more often, and that led to Kamari Morales getting 5 or 6 touchdowns last season.
5 touchdowns last year.
5 touchdowns, which is really good for a tight end. So the group, when I think about this group, I think of the 3 specifically. I think of 3 guys who can really catch the ball. Like, they're really talented at receiving the ball. They're really talented at getting open. And I think last season they saw that. So I think this season we're going to see a lot more of that, because last season they saw, okay, we can create. There's so many different things and mismatches you can create with 3 athletic tight ends on the field. And I think we saw a little bit of that last year, and I think this season we'll see a lot more of it.
Yeah, a lot of it was out of need because they had issues with a lot of receivers getting open. Here's the thing that I like about this room. I do agree with you. They can all run routes and catch the ball. But and Bryson Nesbitt says he's really improved his blocking, but I love the 3 tight end set when you've got Copenhaver split a little bit, because he can block down or he can release and be a receiver, almost like a safety valve type receiver. He scored a touchdown on a play like that last year. They used him in the red zone. He played 47 snaps last year, Brandon, but he got at least 1 tight end snap in 10 different games. And to me, that was a little snapshot on what we might see more of this year. And he got a lot of those snaps in the red zone, oftentimes inside the 10-yard line when they were getting close to the goal line, because they wanted to create all kinds of pre-snap confusion on the defense and not really sure, what are they going to do with this tight end here? And you've got some other candy over there they have to focus on, but you've got a very capable guy there who's much better now, bigger now. We talked to him for the first time the other day, pretty confident guy. And the others are talking about him too, unsolicited. They're talking, John Copenhaver, boy, he's really playing great ball. He's blocking well. He's running routes. He's catching the ball. He's turning his nose upfield, that kind of thing. And we already know that Morales can do that. He's got 27 catches in his career. 6 are touchdowns. That means 22.2% of the time when Kamari Morales touches the ball, he's dancing in the end zone. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And we know what Nesbitt could be. Nesbitt, to me, and by the way, before I get to Nesbitt, Morales is very underappreciated in some ways because Nesbitt's over there. Nesbitt's the shiny object in the room. Nesbitt's the guy that Dina has been gushing about for years, saying he's going to be like Eric Ebron. Yeah. and yeah, maybe so. And I think that there's that kind of potential there. But Morales has been around. He's a really smart guy. He's a grizzled dude. He has played 619 snaps, I think, in his career. Garrett Walston came back to get drafted. And Morales ended up playing the most snaps of the tight ends last year. Part of that was because of his blocking. He's a good blocker. He's got a good base. He's not long. He's got a good base. He's a strong kid, but he can run every route.
Yeah.
He can catch the ball and quickly turn upfield. That's an underrated part of his game, Brandon.
Yeah.
And before we get to Nesbitt, your thoughts about Kamari Morales?
I think he's a security blanket. I know we haven't used that word for this podcast, but other podcasts we have used that word. He's a security blanket, especially now that UNC is going to have a first-year quarterback out there. You need a guy out there. I mean, they have a lot of guys out there now. Not a lot, but they have more guys out there now that whoever the quarterback is, they can throw to him. They know the ball. If the ball is a catchable ball, they're going to catch it. And Morales is one of those guys. He comes in the clutch in the red zone. He comes in the clutch on third downs, and you just need a guy like that that your quarterback can depend on. And like you can't overstate how valuable that is to whoever the young quarterback will be.
We recently ran a tight ends piece about that room, and the lead photograph I used was one of our great photographers, Jenna Miller. She was with me in South Bend last year when the Tar Heels played at Notre Dame, and it was a ball he caught in South Bend, and he got up high enough that if it was a basketball, he would have slammed the thing, come down screaming, and strutted back up the court to play defense, right? He was that high. Wow. He was that athletic. And ball was about around the 50-yard line, that area toward the sideline. He's an athlete. He's an underappreciated athlete. I know that everybody is enamored by Bryson Nesbitt's athletic ability, but if Nesbitt wasn't in that room, we'd all be talking about Kamari Morales.
Yeah,
I think he's really talented. And I think he's a guy that could have a 35 catch year. You know, he's got a knack for the end zone. If 35 catches, if he keeps up that 22.2%, what are we talking, like 8 touchdowns? I mean, that's big time production. Okay, so Nesbitt. Nesbitt is the supremely intriguing guy in the room. And quite frankly, if you were to rank the most intriguing guys on this roster period, Nesbitt would be among the top few guys that you would list. Yeah. He can run receivers as a route. In the spring, we saw him lining up at slot. He says he's still lining up at slot. He even lined up in the backfield some when we were at the practice. We were on something the night where Trevor Williams said, he's lined up in the backfield. Went and saw some. Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense if you're a slot. Because if you remember Josh Downs, that long touchdown he scored in the Orange Bowl against Texas A&M, it started with him in the backfield. Yep. So you got to run what you run, right? Yep. And imagine being a defense and seeing Bryson Nesbitt lining up in the backfield. Like what? And then you've also got Morales in the field. You've also got Copenhaver on the field. You've also got Josh Downs. You've also got Andre Green. I think that the receiving options are off the charts for this team compared to a year ago when there weren't a whole lot of them. And Nesbitt is sort of that X factor guy because he can be prolific as a tight end. He says he's improved his blocking. Others have said he's improved his blocking a lot. That would justify him getting a crap load of snaps. But he can also run all the stuff. He said he can line up anywhere at receiver. He said during fall camp he's been lining up wide on the outside. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how often he lines up where and who he lines up on the field with. I think, to me, of all the many intriguing things about this team, Brandon, and I'm gonna have like 68 notebooks where I'm all intriguing boxes. What do we see? What did we not see? Yeah, he's right there at the top of the list.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe we're talking to Kamari. When we talked to Kamari Morales, they asked, what can he bring to the team different to the tight end room? And he said he can get down the field. He can get down the field faster than anybody else in the tight end room because his strides are so long, and he can be a deep threat. So you can put him at wide receiver. You can line him up in the slot. As you said, they line him up in the backfield. And then you got a guy, I know this isn't a receivers podcast, but then you got a guy like Josh Downs who also can do some of that stuff. And it's like you have so many, he's creating mismatches all over the field. It's just him being out there, him being so athletic. Now, I mean, obviously now he has to go out there and produce, but once he produces, and like you said, he has to continue getting better at blocking also. Like you said, they always said that he's improved his blocking over the summer. And if that's the case, there's really no reason for him to ever come off the field when UNC is on offense.
Well, you say it's not a receiver podcast, but what do we do on defense? When we did the linebackers, we talked a little bit about the jacks because they have linebacker elements to their duties. We talked about the defensive line. We also talked about the Jacks because there's a lot of defensive end responsibilities of what they do as well. This group of tight ends, in particular Morales and Nesbitt, you could almost call them the offensive version of Jacks because they're offensive linemen, they're traditional tight ends, but they can also do a lot of receiving stuff. And Nesbitt, absolutely. Now, Copenhaver said all three of them have gotten work at slot. And I think that's just the looks, especially when you're talking about a wide receiver room that's down to 7 scholarship guys, and 2 of them just arrived, although Andre Green's going to play a lot. Yeah. Chapman may even get on the field as well because they're without Antoine Green probably through September at least. So you're going to see more of that. But these guys are going to do a lot of receiver responsibilities plus traditional tight end responsibilities as well. So I think it's okay to talk about the tight ends in conjunction with receiver because they're good. They're going to be intermingled so much, especially because of how thin the receiver room is and how talented the tight end room is.
All right. So we've talked about how talented they are and like the things they do well. I'll ask you, what would be a concern that you have with this tight end room?
Pass protection. Everybody has dogged the offensive line for the sacks, the 49 sacks last year. I'll say it again. Part of that was Sam held on the ball too long. There's a reason he dropped to the 5th round. And I think that was part of it. I don't think it's a secret that was one of Sam's issues, something that he struggled to improve throughout his 3 years at Carolina. Another one was they didn't have great pass protection at tight end or running back. Garrett Walston was supposed to be that guy. But I think he had some issues with it, and they weren't great in pass protection. So yeah, I think pass protection and then blocking in tight situations. If you're talking about running 2 tight ends out there in a short yardage situation, whether it's at midfield on a 4th and 1, when the analytics say go for it, and they do, or if you're inside the 5-yard line, Nesbitt's not huge. He's kind of long and wiry. You mentioned his stride. That TD he scored against Georgia State last year, that's a sign of things to come, right? But how does that apply to a short yardage situation where you've got to block down and you got to block big? I think Copenhaver might be someone that they can trust in that situation fairly well. And Morales too, to a degree, but how much? Is there flat line here or is there flat line here as blockers? That would be the concern I have about that room. But I wouldn't say it's a tremendous concern. I wouldn't say it's a concern like I have with other position groups like the staff does. Mac told us, look, we know what we got in that room. We know what it's all about. We're fine with it. We're comfortable. So, and that's what the tight end piece that I ran is about. It's about this is the one group on offense staff's not worried about. So if they're not worried about, and it's not just their ability to run routes. It's not because they can be intriguing with all 3 dudes can run in slot. It's the whole job. It's the whole of the job. And so much of the tight end job is being a 6th offensive lineman. So if I have a concern, that would be it, but I don't think it's that big of a concern. I think that we'll probably see them at the very minimum be slightly above average in that area or even better.
I agree. I think with tight ends and blocking, if your tight end is good enough at receiving, you can hide them a little bit in the blocking, and you can do things to compensate for the blocking of a tight end. It's not as much as like a receiver. Like if a receiver's bad at blocking, you can kind of compensate for it a lot more because they're way on the outside. You do need your tight ends to block, but I think as long as they're bringing something and as long as they're bringing something in the run blocking game, I think this group will be completely fine. I
agree. I think they need to be above average.
Oh yeah,
run
exactly.
blocking.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
they need to be above average in run blocking, and then be very productive with the passing game. And they need to run a lot of stuff out of what appears to be run blocking sets. So, and that's again why the multiple tight end packages. We're going to see 2 a lot. We're going to see 3 sometimes. The defense are going to know what they're going to do. You might have Copenhaver split a little bit in the backfield, not in the backfield, but split behind the line of scrimmage, and Morales line up with a hand to ground right next to the tackle. And Morales is the one that leaks out and runs a route, and Copenhaver comes down and blocks down. I think you'll see things like that if they, especially, I think they're going to do it anyway because of scheming. Longo loves to scheme. Longo Losas, he's one of those guys. I can imagine when he was a kid, he had this big board in his room and he's just drawing up all these crazy plays, right? That you see in a movie. The plays that, what is that Little Giants movie, the annexation of whatever it was? Longo's probably drawing up stuff like that when he's 10 years old, right? But I do think that there is something to that. Sometimes Copenhaver's the one that releases and runs the routes. So I think there's a lot of neat stuff they can do with the multiple tight ends that can make them more effective because of the uncertainty that defense will have in what they're going to run.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I also think they're going to run more. I think they're going to run more called stuff, Brandon. I think part of it's because of tight end. If you got 3 tight ends on the field, you can't run a lot of RPOs, can you?
Yeah,
maybe you can. I mean, RPO is still sort of a new developing thing. Maybe you can. I don't know. I just think that when you got a lot of youth out there, and you've got a true freshman wide receiver, maybe a couple of true freshman running backs, and maybe a second-year redshirt freshman, sophomore quarterback, or redshirt freshman quarterback who hadn't played much really in 3 years. Probably a lot of stuff got to be called from the sideline. And you can utilize a 3 tight end set when you do that a lot of times.
Yeah, you can create a lot of mismatches with 3 tight ends because somebody has to be guarded by a linebacker who's not going to be able to guard him. So, yeah, I mean,
or a star. Imagine, any one of the 3 of them getting inside a star over the middle on coverage.
Yeah,
they're wide open if that's the case, right?
Yeah, exactly, with an accurate throw. Yeah,
with an accurate throw, exactly. Which shouldn't be a problem with these quarterbacks. And we will do a quarterbacks podcast coming up. This is part 5 of our 9-part series, taking a look at the Tar Heels as we gear ourselves toward the start of the 2022 season. If you want to be an absolute insider expert about North Carolina football and basketball and recruiting, you need to become a member. It's just $8.33 a month. It's the same price it was when I took this job, started August 1st, 2014. It was $8.33 a month that day, and it's $8.33 a month right now for a 1-year subscription to THI. Our message boards have been phenomenal lately, and that's a wonderful place to go because there's not a bunch of name calling and flame throwing. It's a pretty respectful place. Very interesting discussions about a variety of things, including the ongoing thread about what's going to happen to the ACC. And I've added a lot of tidbits in there that I'm only putting there. I'm not putting anywhere else. So if you want to access that information, you got to become a member. It's just $8.33 a month. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you share this video and tell people who are Carolina fans they've got to be on the Tar Heel Illustrated channel, in addition to signing up, becoming a premium member to our site. If you do that, you're going to know everything you need to know about the Tar Heels. Plus, you get to see Brandon's face on videos all the time and hear his amazing intelligence and wit. And you get to read Miss King stuff on the message boards. And if you love basketball recruiting, nobody does it better than David Sisk, guys. So you got to become a full-fledged, full-throttle member of the THI community. He's Brandon Peay. I'm Andrew Jones. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you.